The Great Assembly of the Confederated Species had 11,000 years of precedent behind it, 406 member worlds, and exactly one rule that had never once been broken. No species joined the assembly proper until it had survived its first contact with the threshold. The threshold was not a place. It was a filter. Every young species that reached the stars eventually met something out there. The Krivax wastes, the long silence, the thing the old records simply called the hunger. Some catastrophic first encounter with the wider galaxy that either broke a civilization or forged it. The Confederation did not create the threshold. It simply waited on the other side, cataloging who made it through. Ambassador Thessaly Okonkwo Reyes did not know, standing in the amphitheater of the Great Assembly for the first time, that humanity had already crossed its threshold 31 years earlier. She only knew that the invitation had arrived 8 months ago, terse and untranslatable in tone, and that 406 delegations were now ten of 6 delegations and at the newest chair in the chamber, with the specific quality of attention usually reserved for something that might, at any moment, catch fire. "You may address the assembly," said the speaker, an ancient veteran whose translucent carapace had gone the pale gray of extreme age. "Regarding the matter of your species' threshold event, it is customary. The assembly listens to how a people survived before it decides how to treat them." Thessaly had prepared several versions of this speech. In the end, she used none of them. 31 years ago, she said, a Kryvax hunting fleet, 11 capital ships, by your classification, translated into the outer edge of our solar system. We had 4 warships in service at the time. None of them had ever fired on another sentient species. We had been in space for 6 years. A ripple went through the chamber, the particular silence of 400 delegations doing the same math and arriving at the same grim number. "You are, I understand, familiar with Krivax fleets," Thessaly continued. "I've read the Assembly's records on the subject. 41 civilizations encountered them at a comparable stage of development. 38 did not survive first contact. The remaining 3 survived by fleeing far enough, fast enough, that the Krivax lost interest in finishing the hunt." "And your people?" the speaker asked. Though something in the ancient voice suggested she already suspected the answer would not match the pattern. "We didn't run," Thessaly said. "We didn't have anywhere far enough away to run to, and we'd spent most of our history as a species discovering that hiding from something bigger than you rarely works out. So instead, we did the thing every species in this chamber has apparently decided not to try." She let that sit a moment. "We looked at 11 Kryvax capital ships bearing down on 4 human warships, and we picked a fight anyway." The silence in the chamber changed texture entirely. "I won't pretend it was strategy," Thessaly said. "It wasn't. Our 4 ships had no business surviving contact with 1 Kryvax vessel, let alone 11. What we had was this. Every human aboard those ships had grown up on a world where nothing had ever, not once in 4 billion years, made surviving easy. We did not know how to quit, because our species had never been given the opportunity to learn." A pause. "So we didn't lose in the way the Krivax expected losing to look like. We lost ships. We lost people, good people. People whose names are still read aloud on the anniversary, every year, in every human nation, regardless of what else divides us. But we did not lose the will to keep shooting. And it turns out that was the variable the Krivax's own war doctrine had never planned for. You defeated 11 capital ships with 4. No," Thessaly said. "We survived contact with 11 capital ships, with 4 badly, expensively, at a cost we are still paying down in the memory of our species. The Krivax fleet withdrew after 70 hours of engagement, not because we won, but because we had made ourselves too costly to finish killing, and their doctrine, like most doctrine, I'm told, was built around efficient predation, not around opponents who simply refused the entire premise of the hunt. She looked around the amphitheater at 406 species who had, each of them, survived their own version of this story and never quite talked about it this plainly. I understand, that is, roughly, how most of you got here too. The speaker's carapace, shifted through a color human diplomatic training, had not yet taught Thessaly to read, though she suspected, from the way the chamber went very quiet around her, that it meant something significant. There is a tradition, the speaker said slowly, of asking the newest member what they learned from their threshold. Most species answer with something about strength or unity or the value of alliance. A pause. What did your people learn, Ambassador? Thessaly thought about the anniversary broadcasts, about the names read aloud in 100 languages, about the strange, stubborn, deeply human habit of turning even their worst days into an argument for trying harder tomorrow. That we were never going to be the strongest species in this room, she said. We know that. We've done the math, same as everyone else here. What we learned is that it didn't matter as much as we thought it would. Being strongest just means you win easily. We learned how to win when we weren't supposed to win at all. And I think, respectfully, that's a different skill entirely. And it's the one none of you have any real way of testing for, until the day you actually need it from us. Nobody in the chamber spoke for a long moment. Then the speaker rose, in the slow ceremonial way of a being who had presided over 406 of these speeches and had never once needed to improvise a response, and improvised one anyway. The assembly has a second tradition, she said, older than the first. We do not often invoke it, because it requires the speaker to admit that the newest member has said something the assembly itself needed to hear. She turned to face the full chamber, 406 delegations, 11,000 years of institutional caution, and said, in a voice that carried to every corner of the amphitheater, "Strike the customary seating chart. The human delegation will sit at the inner circle, effective immediately, alongside the founding species." A murmur, not quite protest, not quite agreement. The sound of very old civilizations recalculating something in real time. "That is unprecedented," said the Kethrane ambassador, not unkindly. "Yes," the speaker agreed. "So, apparently, is this species." She looked back at Thessaly, and something in the old veteran's ancient eyes might, in a human, have been called respect. "Welcome to the assembly, Ambassador. Try not to make the rest of us look complacent by comparison. I suspect it is already too late for that particular hope." Thessaly allowed herself the smallest smile humanity's decades of diplomatic training would permit. "We'll try to pace ourselves," she said. "No promises,